Alright, so this is a video of me explaining the D9 navamsa chart in great detail to the best of my damn ability. I'm pretty confident this will be probably a long as maybe 1 hour video where I just throw a shitload of knowledge on you about the navamsa chart that probably isn't really out there on YouTube at all, and that you'll have to go read a bunch of books or look on the internet for. So nevertheless, let's get this shit started. So, navamsa, the literal translation of that word apparently means ninth division, because the D9 chart is a dissection of the ninth house in your birth chart. And with this chart, the D9 chart, this is a chart that shows essentially who you become as you get older. It shows whether you are capable of getting married or not. And it shows how does one's life change after marriage. Now, some people might be thinking, why would a chart that is supposed to be like a dissection, a deeper, closer look of the ninth house, why would this chart be in things in regards to marriage if it's a deeper look of the ninth house? And the ninth house deals with, the teachings of a father or father figure, teachers, belief systems, and long distance travel. None of those things seemingly have to do with marriage. Also, the ninth house deals with, how lucky and blessed and fortunate you feel in this lifetime. Like I said, none of those things really have to do anything with marriage. Well, from one perspective, 11 places from the ninth house is the seventh house. And as we know, the seventh house deals with relationships and marriage. And with the seventh house being the 11th from the ninth, it's going to have a bit of the energy of the 11th house. So therefore, we can put all these pieces of the puzzle together and see that one of the gains of the ninth house is the seventh, which is marriage, because the 11th from any place in the house is going to have the energy of the 11th house, which is associated with large social network circles, organizations, and gains, and achievements, and rewards, and recognitions. So in a sense, the D9 chart shows that depending on your luck of your birth chart or whatever, it'll show if you have earned, the ability to have achievements, to achieve a good unionship with somebody in a sense. Also, even if we was to go back to like ancient old traditional times, and I did a quick Google search, and it shows that this tradition sort of started in Rome, where it's sort of traditionally, I guess in a sense, preferred that the groom would go to the father of the bride, aka your future father-in-law, and ask for his blessings for you to be able to marry the daughter. And what did I just tell you that the ninth house is associated with? The ninth house is associated with your luck in this lifetime, how blessed and fortunate you feel in this lifetime. And it also deals with your father figure and the teachings of your father or father-like figure. And when you connect that fact with that traditional historical fact that I just told you, you sort of can see some connection that, okay, we are getting pieces of a puzzle put together, and that we can see that when it comes to a marriage, a relationship, you sort of need to be blessed, lucky, and very fortunate in this lifetime for you to be able to find a partner for you to spend the rest of your life with, for you to be married to. It's a blessing to have that. It's sort of like having children. It's a blessing to be able to have children. Everybody's not able to have children. They got to go through a whole bunch of scientific measures to do something that should just flow naturally. And how many people do you know are married? So you need to be blessed and fortunate to be married. And then, on another note, the D9 chart, like I said, is not just a chart about marriage. It is a chart that essentially shows your highest dharma. It's like the chart of your highest dharma. Now, what the hell do I mean by that? Well, if you didn't know, because I'm making this video friendly for people who have a expertise of knowledge on astrology at all levels, whether you're a beginner or a veteran or whatever. The first, fifth, and ninth house of a chart is the Dharma houses. All those houses that are originally ruled by the fire signs, Aries, the first house, Leo, the fifth house, and Sagittarius, the ninth house, those are known as Dharma houses. The ninth house is the last Dharma house. So essentially, with the ninth house being originally ruled by Sagittarius, Sagittarius is the sign of highest dharma, and Jupiter rules Sagittarius. So therefore, you could sort of say also that Jupiter is associated with dharma. But you can also say Venus is associated with dharma too, because Venus, on a nakshatra level, rules it rules the middle of all the fire signs in the nakshatras. You know, Venus rules Bharani nakshatra, which falls in the middle of Aries. Venus rules Purva Phalguni, which falls in the middle of Leo. And Venus rules Purva Ashada, which falls in the middle of Sagittarius. So in a sense, Jupiter and Venus are, in a way, karakas, significators of dharma. And these two planets that I just said are two important planets that you want to look at in your D9 navamsa chart, because Jupiter and Venus are both, in a sense, a karga of dharma. And since the D9 chart is associated with marriage, you need to look at both of those charts, because Jupiter is viewed to be, you know, a husband in a woman's chart, and Venus is a significator of relationships in general. So Jupiter and Venus are associated with dharma, and Jupiter and Venus are two important planets. They're like the heart planets they like the Atma. They're like the Atma Kargas of the D9 navamsa chart. I'm trying to see where else was I about to go with this, but yeah, I was going to explain why, you know, the ninth house is dharma and the D9 chart is the highest of dharma. So because, as I just told you, I explained the dharma houses, and the ninth house is originally associated with Sagittarius, is the last house of dharma, and the D9 navamsa chart is a dissection of that chart, of that house that is the highest of dharmas. Therefore, the D9 chart, in my opinion, is the chart that is the chart of your highest dharma. Now, what the fuck does dharma mean? Essentially, what I gather and put into my own words through, of course, my good friend Google, dharma is essentially like that noble, righteous path you're supposed to walk on in this life. Or, in a sense, it's like that karmic commitment that you have made or have to fulfill to your existence. It's that commitment that you have to your existence. It's like, you will deal with this thing. You will have to walk this path. You will have to do this. Other little Googles or people breaking down what dharma is from based upon what I Google, is like law, cosmic law, the natural essence of things, what you will just be, what is just is. That is dharma. Your dharma is to do this. Your dharma is to do that. You will naturally just do this. So essentially, I sort of view, almost in a sense, your dharma is like a piece. It's almost like your ascendant lord, in a sense, or your dharma is like your atma karga. All these things I just said, your ascendant lord, your atma karga, they're very important, and one almost doesn't trump the other. You gotta look at all the moving pieces of the wheel. You gotta look at all the moving pieces of the clock to get the right time, to get the right picture. All these things are very important. So that's essentially what dharma is. Now, Another thing about the D9 navamsa chart is that to really understand it a bit more and its importance and signification, you need to understand nakshatras, in my opinion. You need to understand nakshatras. Because essentially, the D9 navamsa chart is like a chart composed of the placements of your nakshatras in your birth chart. Now let me explain that and get real deep and scientific and break this shit down. So, it goes like this. By looking at your birth chart and knowing the degrees, like start with your ascendant. By knowing the degrees of your ascendant, a person can tell you the nakshatra that ascendant is in. And then if they want to funnel and get even more deeper and scientific, they can tell you the pada. The pada is a subsection, because every nakshatra, every zodiac sign is 30 degrees long. And then the nakshatras are 13.20 degrees long. And then within those 13.20 degrees, you have another section known as padas. And there's 4 padas in each nakshatra. And each pada is 3.20 degrees long. And there's 12 zodiac signs. And there's essentially 2, it's like 3, yeah. Each zodiac sign gets 3 nakshatras. Or I'm getting my words jumped all mushed together, because each one of some of the zodiac signs share the nakshatras. Like for example, all of the Sun, Mars, and Jupiter ruled nakshatras fall into 2 zodiac signs. Like for example, Sun nakshatras are Kritika, Uttara Falguni, and Uttara Ashada. Kritika falls in between Aries and Taurus. Uttara Ashada falls in between Leo and Virgo. And Uttara Ashada falls in between Capricorn and Sag. Those are the sun ruled nakshatras. They are nakshatras that fall in between 2 zodiac signs. And then you have the Mars ruled nakshatras, which is Mrigashira, which is Taurus and Gem. Then you have Chitra, which is Virgo and Libra. And then you have Dhanista, which is Capricorn and Aquarius. And then finally you have Jupiter, which is Punyavasu nakshatra, which falls in between Gemini and Cancer. Vishaka nakshatra, which falls in between Libra and Scorpio. And Purva Bhadrapada nakshatra, which falls in between Aquarius and Pisces. So yeah, 12 zodiac signs, but those 12 zodiac signs share the 27 nakshatras in a sense. There you go. I've got my words mixed up, but I hope that shit made sense right there. But anyway, back to the padas, as I was getting to. I didn't want to get my self-laws and your self-laws. You already know about nakshatras. I already made videos on nakshatras. But like I said, you got padas, which is, you know, the 3.20 degrees of the 13 degrees of the nakshatra. By knowing the pada, you are able to see what sign that ascendant or what sign that planet will go into in the navamsa. Like for example, let's say that, I don't know, let's say that you are an air, let's say that you are Aries ascendant and you are in 4 degrees. 4 degrees Aries ascendant, which means you would be at Shwini Nakshatra and you should be in the second pada. Why would you be a Shwini ascendant? Because a Shwini is 13.20 degrees long, and I just said that you are 4 degrees. So now we know that you are in a Shwini. And why would you be in the second pada? You would be in the second pada because I told you that Each pada is 3.20 degrees long, and I just said that you are 4 degrees of Aries. So now we know that you are in the second pada. So with you being in the second pada of Aries, that tells me in navamsa, you're going to be a Taurus ascendant. You're going to be a Taurus ascendant in navamsa. You see, the padas of your ascendant and the padas of your planets that are in signs and nakshatras, they, depending on what app you use on your phone or program you use on your computer, or just Googling and putting your birth information on the internet, you should be able to find your padas of your natal planets and of your natal chart. And you'll see what sign will be correlated with that pada. And by knowing that sign, you'll be able to see what sign that planet will go into in the navamsa. And also, by knowing whether your ascendant or your natal planets are in the first, second, third, or fourth pada, will give you a better, deeper insight as to what will be part of the motivations of that planet or of your ascendant. Because there's viewed to be main, because in I guess Vedic or Hindu perspective, there's essentially 4 main motivations to life, or that's why a person lives. You know, you have Dharma, Artha, Kama, Moksha. So planets or ascendants who fall into the first pada of a nakshatra, they are viewed to be Dharma oriented, you know, planets or placements. Dharma, as I just told you, is the way that you should live and move and conduct yourself and all that stuff. Second pada would be associated with Artha. That planet would move in a very Artha, or that ascendant would move in a very Artha oriented way. Which means, you know, the Artha houses is 2, 6, 10. These are houses that are associated with money and work and career. So we'll see that one of the motivations of an ascendant that falls into the second pada, or a planet that falls into the second pada, one of their main motivations will be materialistic oriented. They'll be very goal oriented towards obtaining wealth or status and promotions, and yeah, they can just be very materialistic and just want to acquire status and stuff. If it falls into the third pada, well, then the motivation that they fall underneath will be Kama. K-A-M-A, Kama, which sort of means like desires. The Kama houses is the 3rd, 7th, and 11th house. So we'll see that, you know, whatever planet or ascendant that falls into the 3rd pada of a sign and nakshatra or whatever, we'll see that one of their motivations or things they do, it shows, the 3rd pada will show that that planet will have a desire or love or passion and desire to communicate and share the things in relation to that sign and that nakshatra and that planet. Because the Kama houses is 3, 7, 11. And you know what they all have in common? The things that all those houses have in common, those Kama houses have in common, is that they are very sort of communicative-esque houses. The 3rd house is literally communication. And it's communication, it's the nervous system, it's the hands. You communicate with all these things. The 7th house is relationships. You have a partner that you're communicating with and being with and all that stuff. And the 11th house is organizations. So large groups and masses of people that you're dealing with. So, you know, with that 3rd pada, you will want to communicate the things of that house. Or you'll be very passionate about that house and desire to do the things of that house maybe. Now, planets that are in the 4th pada will have the motivations of moksha, which means liberation. This could be in a spiritual sense or maybe in a more less spiritual, practical sense. The moksha houses is 4th, 8th, and 12th. These are places in the chart where you are able to sort of run away and retreat from the world, where you can sort of get rest from the world. You might get rest from the world in a literal sense, as in going to sleep or being put to death and getting killed, or you might get rest from the world by maybe, in a spiritual sense, leaving your body, your soul and spirit leaving your body. Maybe you doing drugs to have a out of body, out of this world experience, or maybe you'll go to jail, a rehabilitation center where you're isolated from the world, which is like 12th house things. But the 4th, 8th, and 12th house are the moksha houses, and planets that are falling in the 4th pada, ascendant that could be falling in the 4th pada, will show that you, one of your main motivations or motivations of that planet will be towards moksha. And then while I'm on the topic of padas, I also will talk about, I'll briefly tell you about something known as pushkara padas, and then I'll wrap this back up and get us back on the right path so I don't lose you and shit. But navamsa is very intricate. So what is pushkara pada? Essentially, the word pushkara means to nourish something, and pada means like a foot or a step or a section or something along those lines. So essentially, when a planet falls into pushkara pada, these are positions in a chart where these are positions in a chart where a planet that falls within these degrees of a sign, they will give very good favorable results. And it's better if I just give you the outright definitions from what I'm reading versus me stumbling over my own damn words. So essentially, planets that are in pushkara pada is if you have a planet that's in the 4th pada of the Rahu nakshatras, which is Ardra, Swati, and Shittabhishak, then that planet is in pushkara pada, which means that that planet at its core is going to do pretty good. It's going to give pretty good results, regardless if whatever sign that planet is falling in is debilitated, regardless if whatever house that planet is in is a Dashanta house or whatever. If you have a planet in pushkara pada in your, if you have a planet in pushkara pada in your birth chart, then that shows that, you know, maybe depending on the planet and the sign that that planet is in and the house is in, that planet might struggle early on in your life, but at the end of the day, in the navamsa, that planet is going to be fairly strong. It's going to have a source of strength. It's going to get favorable, good results. And like I said, I'll say it again. If you have a planet that's in the 4th pada of Rahu nakshatras, which would be Ardra, Swati, and Shittabhishak, this is known as pushkara pada. And if you have planets in the 1st and 4th pada of the sun root nakshatras, which is Kritika, Uttara Falguni, and Uttarashada, then your planets are also in pushkara pada. The 2nd and 4th pada of the Jupiter nakshatras, Punya, Vasu, Vishaka, and Purva Bhadrapada, are also known as pushkara pada degrees and placements of a planet. 2nd pada of Saturn nakshatras, which is Pushya, Anurada, and Uttara Bhadrapada, are also known as pushkara pada. And finally, the 3rd pada of Venus nakshatras, Bharani, Purva Falguni, and Purva Ashada, are known as pushkara pada. And the interesting thing about the planets that are within these padas of these nakshatras that fall into pushkara pada is that they all go into a benefic. They all fall into a sign in navamsa that is ruled by a benefic planet, by a benefic graha. So it's interesting, you know. It's a lot of theories and pools of thoughts as to why it is stated that planets that fall within these certain degrees of signs are stated to give favorable, good results. But one thing that is seen to be interesting is that, you know, the pada lord, which is the planet that rules the sign of the pada your planet is in, or essentially the dispositor of these planets in the navamsa, they're all benefic. They're either ruled by Jupiter, Venus, Mercury, or Moon. So there's a lot of theories as to why this could give favorable results. I can't really think of something heavy and deep and philosophical right now, but it's food for thought. Y'all can do your own Googles and research on Pushkar Padas. But if you have planets within these degrees in your birth chart, then that's something that's very good. Like, that planet might be in a very tough position on your birth chart, because, you know, things go case by case. You might have a planet that's doing real good in Pushkar Pada. You might have a planet that's exalted in the birth chart in Pushkar Pada, and then it might get debilitated in navamsa. And you'll think that, oh, because that planet is debilitated in navamsa, that it's going to give negative results. Well, if it's in Pushkar Pada, then it won't give negative results. There will be some sort of strength. There will be some goodness within that darkness. But Pushkar Pada is something that you should look out for when assessing your birth chart and looking at the navamsa. But back to me wrapping things back up, I was telling you that the navamsa is essentially like a birth chart. It's essentially like a chart composed of the nakshatras and padas of your birth chart. And an expert, or I wouldn't even say an expert, I would say a brilliant or genius astrologer, they would be able to look at your birth chart and they will be able to know the positions. They'll know your navamsa chart by looking at your birth chart. They won't have to go pull up an app and hit D9. They won't have to do that. Just by you telling them, oh, I got a planet that is in this sign and in this degrees, they can automatically in their brain just tell you, they can automatically in their brain figure out that, okay, if you got a planet that's in this sign and its degrees, it means that it's within this nakshatra, and it means that it's in this pada, which means, therefore, this is your ascendant, and therefore, these planets is going to be in that house, that house, that house, and that house. You can do that. Because, like I said, your navamsa chart is essentially a chart based upon your nakshatras and your nakshatra padas. The signs that are your padas of your ascendant and your natal planets will determine what sign they'll go into in the D9 navamsa. So you see how intertwined and intrinsic the navamsa and birth chart are in a way. They're interlocked. It's like interlocking your fingers. It's like interlocking your hands. They're like missing pieces of a puzzle. You need both of them to give a very clear, accurate assessment of a person's life. And yeah, you need a very good. You need to always assess both of the charts. Now I'm looking at my notes because I took a shitload of notes down for this video. I already told you that the navamsa chart is a chart of the highest dharma because it's a dissection of the 9th house in your birth chart, which is the house, the final house associated with dharma. I told you that the D9 navamsa chart is a chart that also shows your ability to get married, life after marriage, and just how would the married life be in a sense. Because in a sense, like I told you, traditionally, you sort of need like the blessings of the father and father figure. 11 places from the 9th house is the 7th house, which is marriage. So therefore we see that the gains of having, you know, being very blessed and fortunate is that you can get married. And or you can flip it around. Because I told you Venus in a sense is like a significator of dharma too. You could view it like this. You could say that our D9 navamsa chart, I guess in a spiritual, esoteric, metaphysical sense, philosophical sense, whatever, can sort of give you a hint or clue if maybe the person that you marry, the person you choose to be in union with, will they sort of influence and help strengthen your path to God or a higher belief system and divinity, or will they take you away from God and the 9th house things and a higher philosophy and belief system? Because, you know, you got some people, in a general sense, they might have grew up in a very religious household. But then they get married or get intertwined in a serious relationship, and they just start going to church, they start going to temples, they start going to the mosque, they start doing all the things that they did before they got married in a relationship just to be with the person that they're with. Or you have some people, they marry somebody and their partner is very spiritual, their partner is very religious, and they're like, listen, if we get married, if we get together, we're going to go to this temple, we're going to go to church, we're going to do these rituals, we're going to do this every week or whatever, because it's very important to me. So for some people, you will see that through union, through marriage, it might bring them closer to God or higher divinity, or it might take them away from it. And that's what I sort of got with my own opinion by seeing how the D9 navamsa chart is associated with Dharma, associated with love, it's associated with Venus, it's associated with Jupiter. And I'm like, damn, wow, all these things mixed together and stuff. So I'm trying to see where else I'm gonna go with this next. Fuck it, I'll tell you this too. Since I was talking about a source of strength with the Pushkarapada, another two other sources of strength that you want to see in your navamsa, to see, you know, how well placed and good your planet is from birth to navamsa, is to see if your planet is Vargotama. What the hell does Vargotama mean? It means when a planet is in the same sign in the birth chart and in the same sign in navamsa, that's a source of strength. That is viewed and considered to be a good placement. Even if the planet is debilitated, even if you got Saturn and Aries in the birth chart, and then Saturn goes into Aries again in the navamsa, that Saturn is considered to be strong and well placed with it being in the same sign. Why is this the case? Like I said, I could make separate whole videos for why the things that are in books instead by teachers and stuff, I can make a whole separate video for these things as to why it might be considered that these things are considered to be sources of strength and of benefits. But if I was to do that in this video might fuck around be 2 hours long. I don't feel like making no goddamn 2 hour long video. But yes, Vargotama planets that fall into the same sign from birth to navamsa, are considered to be a positive thing, a good source of strength. And you can apply this logic when it comes to birth chart, go into any other divisional chart. So if you got the same planet in the birth chart and the Samsa chart, aka the D10 chart, or the D12 chart, or the D60 chart, or all them other goddamn charts, that's considered to be a source of strength. Another thing is Parivartan Yoga, mutual sign exchange. It's when, you know, a planet is... It's sort of hard to explain, but I'll just give you the example and then you'll understand what the fuck I'm saying. An example of a Parivartan Yoga would be Sun being in Virgo and Mercury being in Leo in your chart. Mercury is sitting in a sign ruled by Sun, and Sun is sitting in a sign ruled by Mercury. So therefore, there's like this telekinetic connection and link between the two grahas, because they are both sitting in a sign that each of them rules. And it is believed that when you have planets that are like this in your chart, that is a source of strength, and that essentially the planets will behave as if they are in their own sign. So that's a source of strength. If you got like, if you had Mars in Capricorn and you had Saturn in Aries, that's a great position. That's a great source of strength, because to a novice, to a beginner, they might look at their birth chart or look at their navamsa chart or whatever and see that, fuck, yeah, I got an exalted Mars, that's great, but my Saturn is so weak, my Saturn is debilitated, this is in Aries. But they might not have been knowledgeable of the fact that that's actually a planetary yoga that they're looking at. They're looking at a sign exchange. So therefore, not only is that Mars exalted, but also that Mars is sort of going to be behaving in a sense that it's going to be that Mars is also going to be behaving as if it's in its own sign of Aries, which is its multicone sign. And that Saturn, yeah, on the outside is debilitated in the sign of Aries, but because Mars is sitting in the sign of Saturn and Saturn is sitting in the sign ruled by Mars, there is like a connection. And that Saturn will behave like it's in Capricorn, and that Mars is going to behave also like it's in Aries. So therefore, that debilitation is going to be like neutralized, and that Saturn will give good results. So that's Parivartan Yoga. So that's something to look out for when it comes to assessing the strength of a planet in the navamsa. Because you might see a planet that you might look at your 7th lord, or you might look at your Venus in the navamsa, and you might see, man, I'm never going to get married. I'm never going to get into a relationship, or everything's going to suck because it's debilitated, or it's in this sign. But you probably didn't pay attention to see if it was in any yoga. So that's something to pay attention to. Now, let's talk about one of the things that I know a lot of people are probably dying to know when they open up the D9 chart. They look at the chart and they probably get excited, like, okay, cool, I got another chart for me to look at. It shows who I become as I get older. It shows who I become after marriage. I want to know if I can get married. How do I see that? How do I figure it out? Well, of course, specifically, there are different things in a person's chart that can make them not be able to get married or have experienced great difficulties. So, of course, I can't hit all the little nitty-gritty details of what can make somebody not get married and can get them get married, but I can speak in a general broad sense. And it's up to you to have the intelligence to interpret your own chart, or go book a reading with somebody else or me and have them dig in your chart and come up with an answer. So essentially, through what I have read and learned from other little astrologers here and there, is that the ascendant and the ascendant lore of every divisional chart in general is very fucking important. The ascendant and ascendant lore of every divisional chart is the heart of that chart. So for example, if, like for the D7 chart, a chart about children, if the ascendant of that chart is under a lot of negative influences, and also the ascendant lore is under a lot of negative malefic influences, just in a bad position, is hemmed in the Shanta houses, and like I said, multiple negative influences, not just one, not just two. You need to have like 3 or more, just strong negative influences on the ascendant or ascendant lord. It sort of kills and destroys the significations of that chart. So with that being said, you look at the D9 navamsa chart the same way. You'll look at your ascendant of the D9 navamsa chart, and then you will look for the ascendant lord of your navamsa chart. You want to see if they are in good condition. You want to see if your ascendant or ascendant lord are hemmed by malefics. What does that mean? Hemmed is when there's negative planets on the 12th and 2nd place from that planet or from that ascendant. So if I have like K2 and Saturn conjunct in the 12th house of my ascendant, and I mean the 12th house of my navamsa, and then I have like Mars and and I have Mars and Sun conjunct in the 2nd house, but then we see that my ascendant is hemmed by malefics, because there's malefic planets in the 12th house from itself and the 2nd house from itself. And it's not just one, it's 2. It's almost like you're buying a mansion and you're in an impoverished environment. You're in the hood, you're in the ghetto, you're in a war zone, and everybody is bummy. Everybody is broke, everybody is poor, but you got the nicest fucking house on the block. But you're the only one with the nice place and everybody is broke. You are in danger. You're going to be scared to leave your house because you might get robbed and killed. You might be afraid to sleep because someone might break into your house. Someone might steal your car, break into your car, follow you to work. So you got this nice house, but your environments, your surroundings, you're scared to enjoy your luxuries. You can't enjoy the fruits and benefits of your house. Or it's like you're trying to grow fruits and plants in a desert. You're not in a good environment. You don't have good surroundings for you to be fruitful and cultivate these things that you desire. So you have a hard time trying to grow fruit in a desert. Or you have a hard time enjoying and flashing the nice, luxurious things that you own in an environment where people are poor and there's a lot of criminal activity. You won't have a hard time enjoying that. So therefore, in the same sense as you would have a hard time enjoying that, you're going to have a hard time enjoying the fruits of the significations of that chart. So if your navamsa, if your ascendant is getting a whole lot of malefic influences, then that is one negative sign that shows us that you would likely struggle to get married or in a marriage-like relationship, which means you cohabiting with somebody, you living with somebody, y'all living together, y'all spending a lot of time around each other, but preferably, y'all living together. That's the closest thing to a marriage-like relationship, is when y'all live together. So whenever you get into like a serious relationship like that, you spend a lot of time around each other, y'all spending a lot of nights over each other's houses or whatever, you're gonna have there's gonna be difficulties arising. You're gonna have a hard time keeping and cultivating the spark and the life of that marriage or whatever. You're just gonna have a hard time getting in the marriage, or when you're in the marriage, it's gonna be a lot of difficulties and it will just end. It will fall apart. Same thing if the ascendant lord is under a shitload of malefic influences. A lot of malefic influences, a lot of malefic aspects, on top of being in the Shunta houses, which is 6th, 8th, and 12th. A combination of one of those two being heavily influenced by those malefics, if there's nothing to put out those fires and dispel the negativity, then you're going to have a lot of difficulties, fulfilling the promise of that chart. The promise or significations of the D9 navamsa chart mainly is marriage. So if, like I said, that ascendant and that ascendant lord, if they are not in great positions, then it is typically said you can almost expect that person to not get married or have great difficulties in getting into a relationship. Even if your 7th lord and your 7th house is beautiful, if they're in great positions, even if they are in great conditions, if that ascendant is fucked up, then you're done. Because think about it. What is the ascendant in your birth chart? The ascendant is you. It's the moment you are born. It's your physical body being born. You're not going to be able to experience none of the houses if you're not born. You're not going to be able to experience the 2nd house of family and wealth, 3rd house of siblings, 4th house of mother, 5th house of children, 6th house of debts, 7th house of relationships, 8th house of sex and in-laws, 9th house of teachings, 10th house of career, 11th houses of organizations and gains, 12th house of foreign travels and isolation. You're not going to be able to experience none of that shit if your 1st house, you, are not born, or if you're not healthy. So in that same sense, if the baby, if the life, if the heart of the navamsa chart is not in great condition, then how the hell are you going to be able to properly enjoy all of the other houses in the navamsa chart? You're not going to be able to do it. You're going to experience great difficulty trying to do it. So that's essentially the main thing that you want to look at to see if a person is able to get married or not. Because if that's damaged, well then, of course I'm speaking in a real general case, but if those are heavily damaged, well then you might not be in a serious committed relationship, but you just, you probably just have flings. You'll probably just be dating people a lot, You'll probably just, like I said, you'll just date, be romantic, and fuck people, and they just never go nowhere. Likely, who knows how it might fall into place? But You can find love, you can date, you can get into relationships, but that real serious relationship, because like, some people, you probably think that, man, me and this person, we're so perfect for each other. I like them, they like me. Everything is great. I think everything's great. But try living with that motherfucker. Shit is different when you are waking up and living with a person. Because you see, when you're just dating a person, you can present your best version of yourself every time. Every time a guy meet a girl, he can make sure that he get a haircut or he buys some fresh clothes before he go and meet her, smell good. Same thing with the girl. She can make sure that she look good, smell good. Make sure that she presents her best self every time that she goes out with him. But when you're living with each other, cohabiting with each other, or when you're married to each other, y'all done seen the good, bad, and ugly of each other. Y'all done met each other's family or know about each other's family. Y'all know each other's secrets to an extent. Y'all seen the good, bad side. Y'all seen the insecurities. You seen the shadow work that needs to be done. You seen all that shit. You see all the stuff that you're not going to see if you're not living with someone, if you're not around them that much, And sometimes when you get that close to somebody, that's when shit falls apart. Because like I said, even your teeth bites your cheeks sometimes. Your teeth, they close and tight like this. And then you might bite your cheek or your tongue sometimes. Or, or in another sense, your teeth in your mouth, it shifts. Your teeth might fall out. They might get crooked and lopsided. They drift apart. So, sometimes with marriage or unions or groups or whatever, when two things get too close, y'all might bite each other. Y'all might fight each other. Or, when y'all get close, y'all just find each other drifting further and further apart. So, that's what might happen if your ascendant and your ascendant lord and your navamsa is destroyed. But, the normal significations of love is good. Like your Venus and your 7th house and 7th lord, they might be good. But that ascendant and ascendant lord, they're trash. So you might experience love, but when it comes to times to be like, let's move in together, let's live together, I want to be in your skin, you find out that it won't work. So that's essentially how you go and see if a person can get married or not. If not, then they just have relationships. And then if the ascendant and ascendant lord is destroyed, and the 7th house is destroyed, and the Venus is destroyed, then that means you're not destined for love at all. But think about this shit. It is fucking rare. How fucking common do you really think it is for somebody to like... How common do you really think it is for someone to both have a destroyed ascendant, a destroyed ascendant lord, and a fucked up 7th lord in 7th house, and a fucked up Venus? That's too many conditions that you have to get fulfilled to be fucked up. So in a sense, everybody for the most part has a good chance of experiencing love. Everybody has a good chance of getting into a relationship, kissing somebody, having sex. Everybody has that chance. But the navamsa really sort of highlights that you want to look for in the navamsa is if that person can really be married. You wake up to them every day. You raise that family all together. But everybody has the capacity to experience a relationship and dating and all. Everybody got the capacity for that. So don't ever think that, oh man, I can never date somebody and shit. I mean, of course, case by case, you gotta look at a person's chart and see what the fuck is exactly going on. Because people can experience great severe difficulties. But for the most part, damn near everybody can experience love. It might not be common. It might come in seasons, in waves here and there, but everybody got the chance. So, another thing that someone, like there's different yogas and stuff. I don't got time to go into all of them. But some of you might be wondering, well, what does the houses mean in the navamsa chart? Because that's sort of one of the confusing or tricky things when it comes to looking at the various divisional charts in general. Because you're like, okay, I know that you said this chart represents this chart represents that, but what does this house mean? I know what this house means in the birth chart, but what does this chart mean? What does this house mean in this chart? Well, essentially with the D9 navamsa chart, The significations of the houses is essentially the same as the birth chart, except you would read it like this. You would read it like this. You would be like, you know, as you get married or through marriage, you know, this will happen. This will change. Like, for example, and also, like I said, I didn't say this before, but I'll just clarify this too. Your navamsa chart will become activated regardless if you get married or not. So you don't got to worry about that. You know what? I'll tackle this right now while it's on my mind. I don't really see, through reading books and through the internet, any solid answer on when someone believes, when the D9 navamsa chart becomes activated. You know, some people might believe that the D9 navamsa chart becomes activated only after marriage or whatever. Some people might believe that the D9 navamsa chart becomes activated when all the planets reach their mature date, their age of maturity, or whatever. I don't know. Those are the only main two things I hear or I've heard, but I know that there is like no unanimous agreement that yes, we can undeniably say that this is when a person's navamsa chart is fully activated. I don't even have a solid opinion and answer my damn self, you know, but as of this moment of me recording this video, I'll say that I believe that all of the divisional charts are essentially activated the moment that you're born. It's just that some of them remain dormant until certain conditions are met. Until certain conditions are met, they remain dormant, like a disease or like your genes. You know, you go through puberty and you grow and change at certain ages of your life. I feel as though the navamsa is sort of the same way. After maybe a certain age or after certain conditions have been met, your navamsa chart will come alive. And in some cases, it's not like boom, you get married and you'll instantly become your navamsa chart. I don't believe that. I believe with the navamsa chart, it's like once you get married, you'll slowly become that navamsa chart. Karmas will be open and getting fulfilled. Certain events will align and happen in your life that you'll slowly begin to, you know, behave like the navamsa chart over the course of years. Or as you get older, you'll slowly begin to behave more and more like your navamsa chart to an extent. But as far as like a set date and time period for when your navamsa chart becomes activated, I don't have that answer. Another thing in the navamsa chart is that since the navamsa chart is sort of like a chart based upon, you know, your nakshatras and padas of your birth chart, your birth chart is sort of like who you are on the surface, and your navamsa chart is sort of like who you are deep down in your core, who you'll become over a course of time and whatnot. What else do I gotta say about the navamsa chart? Yeah, I had to get that out. The activations of the navamsa chart and all that good shit. So now we're gonna go jump to, like I said, the house meanings of the navamsa chart. So, the first house of the navamsa chart essentially shows who you become after marriage and what you might want out of a marriage or a relationship, or how will marriage change you, because the first house is you. So if, I don't know, if your first house is Aries in your navamsa, then we can probably say that you might want a physically active relationship or marriage. Because why do I say this? Aries originally rules the first house, which is the forehead, which contains the brain and the body, your overall body and health. And Aries is ruled by Mars. Mars is, you know, how you assert yourself. It's action oriented, it's aggression, it's working out and all that good shit. So therefore, we could just say in a general sense, you would want to be physically active in some way, shape, or form in your marriage, and not necessarily just sexually. You might want to work out. You might want to take walks and go running and shit or maybe through marriage, you might become selfish. Because Aries originally rules the first house of the self, you. So you might be selfish in the marriage. Or you might become a little bit independent as you get older. You might want to explore and find your sense of self through marriage. Who knows? All those different things. But the first house can show, like I said, what you might want out of a marriage and all that good stuff. And also, I know some people do not agree with navamsa nakshatras, using nakshatras in divisional charts in general. Because I know there is a scientific, mathematical, well, I'll say more so mathematical way of how, you know, the divisional charts are created. Doing certain divisions and subtracting or adding of numbers and degrees of the birth chart, you can create the divisional charts. I'm not that great at math, so that's why I didn't give that example of how the navamsa chart is created from a arithmetic perspective, because I'm not knowledgeable. I'm not that really great at math, and I would confuse my damn self. But I guess when you try to apply the logic of nakshatras within a divisional chart in general, it becomes very crazy and doesn't make sense in a logical sense. But we gotta remember, astrology is an occult. It's mystical. It's not just logical. It's a bit divine. So you're not going to be able to logically understand and comprehend everything. With that being said, at least as at the time we recorded and making this video, I do agree and believe in viewing the nakshatras, at least when it comes to the navamsa. I do believe it shows results, and that it resonates. It makes more sense if you use your app or program on a phone or computer to show you the nakshatras of your ascendant and planets in the navamsa. I do believe that they do show results, even if it might not logically on pen and paper make sense. Try it out, or talk to other people and see if they're playing out the themes of that nakshatra in their married life or as they got older. I believe it shows results. But yeah, back to the first house. What do you want out of a marriage? How you'll become after marriage? And then when you learn the nakshatra of that ascendant, you'll get even more details of how you might move and behave and become after marriage. Second house of the navamsa. Second house is, of course, your wealth. And your wealth or the family that you came from. So in a D9 navamsa perspective, you could say that the second house of the navamsa chart will show how is your wealth impacted after marriage. Through marriage, how does your personal finances get impacted? How does your speech get impacted? How does what you eat get impacted? How does maybe the relationship with your family that you come from, how does that get impacted for getting married? The third house, written communication, short distance travel, siblings, is also known as a house of courage. How courageous and brave you are and all that good stuff. So, by looking at the third house, we might see how does your communication change after being married. We might see how confident or courageous and bold and brave you might be after getting married or as you get older. How does your relationship with your youngest siblings change after getting married? Do you begin to travel more locally or whatever? Or does your third house just become activated more in general through marriage? That's how we would look. The fourth house is, it would be the happiness of the marriage. It would be your home life, the home life within the marriage. How would the home life be with you and your spouse? And like I said, the fourth house is a house of like mental happiness anyway, because it's associated with the moon. And if you don't have peace within your home, then you're not going to really find peace anywhere else. And I sort of say the things that about to say in my how to view depression in a birth chart video, and I'm not trying to repeat that too much to get sidetracked, but in a general sense, without me getting too deep and philosophical, the 4th house in the navamsa chart will show the happiness within the household of the marriage. Maybe give you insight into the household and the family life that you might have with you and your spouse. The 5th house in the navamsa chart will show you the romance of the marriage. It will show you, because you know the 5th house is associated with hobbies and romance and learning and education and politics and children. So you can sort of get an insight on how maybe you can probably get a little bit of an insight on, you know, you having kids through marriage. How might your firstborn kid be through you getting married, or as you get older? How might your education change through marriage? How romantic you might be in the marriage, in the relationship, might be seen by looking at the 5th house of your navamsa. If the 5th house and 5th lord is not very good, well, then you might not be the most romantic. The romance might be dry, you know. Who knows? But the 5th house is essentially how I focus on viewing it in the navamsa chart, is in regards to children and how romantic you are, the dating life. How romantic will you be in keeping that spark alive within the marriage? Then you have the 6th house, which is debts and bills and the routines and stuff that you'll do in your everyday life. The obstacles, there you go. 6th house is obstacles. 6th house is the karma, the things that you must deal with and face. So the 6th house of the navamsa chart will show sort of like, I don't know, some of the obstacles that you might face within the marriage. Because you see 12 places from the 7th house is the 6th house. And what's the 12th house? The 12th house is a house of loss. And the 6th house is also a house known as enemies. So, I don't know. Looking at the 12th place from the 7th house in your navamsa can sort of give you insight onto the things that might terminate the marriage. Things that might end the marriage. The obstacles that might be present within the marriage can sort of be seen by looking at the 6th house. And then 6 places from the 7th house is the 12th house. I told you the 6th house is the obstacles. The 6th house is the bills and the debts. 6th house is enemies. So 6 places from the 7th house is the 12th. The 12th house is also a house known as hidden bed pleasures. So one of the enemies and obstacles of the marriage might be secret hidden sexual affairs. That's always the risk of any marriage, of any union, is your partner possibly cheating, giving their energy and time to somebody else. Those things can present an obstacle. So 6th place from the 7th house, in my opinion, in the navamsa, can sort of maybe point to, you know, maybe some of the hidden secret issues that you might keep from the public within your marriage, or maybe some of the secret hidden issues that might be dormant within your marriage and union that you might not even be knowing about. And the 12th place from the 7th house, or maybe even from your 7th lord, might give you hints and clues as to the things that might end and terminate the marriage and or union. So what else do I got to say? That's essentially the 6th house. 7th house, no brainer. The 7th house is the spouse, the person that you're marrying, how they're going to be and all that good stuff. The 8th house is the opposite of the 2nd house. 2nd house is your family. The 8th house is your in-laws, your spouse's family. Sex, transitions, death, occult. But I guess in the relationship sense, how does sex change after marriage? Your relationship with the in-laws after marriage. Your spouse's wealth after marriage. You could probably look at those things through the 8th house. 9th house. House of teachings of father and father figure. And dharma and all that good stuff. I don't want to mess y'all up. Let me take a quick little glance. I would say, you know, The ninth house of the navamsa chart was shown maybe how does your relationship with the things in relation to the ninth house change through marriage, as I told you in the beginning of the video. By looking at the ninth house and the ninth lord and all that stuff, we might be able to see that after marriage, does you getting married to this person maybe get you more interested in politics and get you more interested in God and make you want to travel more, or does it take you away from wanting to learn about God and education and politics? You know, because the ninth house is originally ruled by Jupiter. Jupiter is the guru, is the teacher. Jupiter rules Pisces and Sagittarius, which rules the thighs and the feet, the things that help you walk and carry you and all that good stuff. So we'll be able to see from maybe looking at the ninth house and the ninth lord of the navamsa chart, does the spouse take you, I don't know, throw you off from finding the right form of guidance in this lifetime, or do they take you to it? Who knows? But you can sort of examine those type of things by looking at the ninth house. Or the ninth house could just show how blessed and fortunate, how does your blessings and luck and fortune increase through marriage. The 10th house shows, the 10th house is your career, your status, your reputation, almost like your public image through marriage. So we might be able to see that if you get married, you'll be doing real good career-wise. Your career will improve if you get married. Or if you get married, you'll deal with all these obstacles by getting married. Or we'll see that, you know, that depending on what planets are in the 10th house, if there's any at all, we'll see that your marriage will look like this in the public eye. Because, you know, I don't know. The 7th house is 10 places from the 10th house. It's the 7th house. And the 10th house is original by Saturn. 7th house is original by Venus. Venus is exalted. Saturn is exalted in the sign of Venus, and Saturn gains directional strength in the sign of Venus. And mythologically, Shukracharya and Shani, they have sort of like a good relationship with one another. So I am mad that I just lost my train of thought, but I've said all that to say that, you know, there you go. I've seen that the 10th house could show you how your marriage might be viewed to the public. Birth chart perspective, who you are, your reputation, you're sort of judged by what you do for a living. If you work for a nice company, you'll be like, damn, you're a catch, or damn, okay, you got a nice job, okay, I see you. But if you got like some regular normal job, then it's like, oh, all right, you like everybody else, or you're broke, or whatever. People will automatically start judging you. Now, from the navamsa perspective also, depending on what planets you have in the 9th and the 10th house, it'll sort of give off the image of how your marriage will be viewed in the public eye. If it's Venus, it might be you being in a relationship, you being married might be the most beautiful looking thing to everybody else. It might look real beautiful, feel real beautiful. It'll look like just beautiful, like, oh, I can't believe that they're finally together, or you're finally in a relationship. Or if it's Saturn, it might be like, oh, their relationship like it's a burden. They going for a lot of stuff. It looks like stress and commitment, and I don't want to deal with it. Or if it's Mars, it might be like, wow, they are real physically active in their marriage. They always traveling, they always doing this, they always doing that. Jupiter, they might say, wow, you know, I don't know. I didn't think this through too much to give you solid, great examples, but that's what the 10th house of the navamsa can also show. How your marriage changes after union, or as you get older, or how your marriage might be viewed to the public eye when you're together. The 11th house is large social network circles, organizations, gain, eldest sibling, all that good stuff. So the 11th house of the navamsa chart can sort of show you how does your network circle grow and expand through getting married. It might show you, it might show just essentially how does your network circle change and grow after marriage, what things you might achieve and accomplish after maybe getting married or whatever. Let me make sure I'm not missing nothing for the 11th house. Yeah, that's essentially what the 11th house is in the D9 Navamsa chart. The 12th house, like I said, the 12th house is associated with isolation, imprisonment, rehabilitation. The 12th house is maybe financial losses, debts, loss of money, secret hidden sexual affairs. And like I said, it could just, yeah, secret hidden sexual affairs and financial losses that could be happening within the marriage. Yeah, essentially, yeah, the loss of the marriage in a sense of, I keep trying to think of other things because I'm trying to be careful with my words. I don't want to be all doom and gloom, but that's all I can sort of think of off the top of my head when it comes to what could the 12th house mean in the Navamsa. But I'm not trying to be all real negative and shit, because I don't believe that placements in the 12th house is just flat out fucking negative and shit. But like in a sense, it might just, like I said, in a marriage sense, financial losses or the obstacles within the marriage, because 6 places from the 7th house is the 12th house. So it might show your secret hidden enemies, your hidden obstacles. So that's what the 12th house would be. I'm going to stop it right there. So those would, in a general sense, what the 12 houses in the Navamsa chart mean. You just got to sort of implement their regular meanings in the birth chart with the significance of the divisional chart, and that's how you come up with what does the 12 houses mean. So I'm gonna go take a quick glance at my phone to make sure I didn't miss nothing. One of the things I didn't say that I forgot to say is that, you know, like I said, when you look at your Navamsa chart, you look at your Venus, you look at your 7th lord, you look at the nakshatras, you'll see, you know, the type of partner you'll attract and the partner that you'll date and how you'll become as you get older. But to see even more specifically how your life will change through marriage, you have to do horoscope matching, meaning you have to see your person who you're living with, the person that you're married to. You have to see their chart and see where their planets go into your birth chart in or Navamsa. You have to see how their planets is affecting you, and that will specifically fine-tune and tell you how is that partner specifically affecting you. What else do I have to say before I end this very lengthy video? I already told you about Ragotama. I already told you about Pushkarapada. I already told you that there's different pools of thoughts of when the Navamsa becomes activated. Some believe it's when all the planets are at their mature age, or when Saturn is matured, or when you get married, or whatever. What else do I have to say? I'll end my video essentially with this, because I probably can make several different videos on Navamsa, and that's why this video is so long. I did not want to have to make repeatedly different videos explaining different things that I forgot about the Navamsa chart. I want to make a great one-size-fits-all universal video for Navamsa, just like I did for my nakshatra videos. There's one pool of thought that believes that when Venus is exalted in the Navamsa, that a person might not even desire to get married. Of course, this doesn't mean that everybody who got Venus in Pisces in the Navamsa will not get married or not desire a relationship. You got to see different things in a person's chart. Is that Venus your ascendant lord? Is that Venus your 7th lord? Is that Venus associated with the 7th lord or your ascendant lord? Is the Venus in the ascendant or the 7th? You got to see that Venus. But it's in a general sense, because Venus is a natural karaka of love and relationships, and one of the Atma karakas of the Navamsa. It is sort of believed or theorized that people who have Venus in Pisces and the Navamsa might not desire to get married. And now this part of the video is just me theorizing and getting all philosophical on why this might be the case. The reason it might be the case is that, in a sense, we gotta think. Pisces the symbol for it is a fish, right? And what is associated with fish? The South Node K2 is associated with fish, isn't it? Pisces falls in the moksha house, right? And the Pisces is the 12th zodiac sign. It's associated with the 12th house, which is the highest, which is the last house associated with moksha. So Pisces is the highest of moksha. And K2 being a planet, a graha, a shadow graha associated with moksha, would show that K2 is also the highest of moksha, the highest of liberation, the highest of retreat, the highest of rest, the highest significations of all those things. And Venus, and like I said, K2 is associated with fish. That's one of the things this is related to. So we now know that Venus, we now know that Pisces and fish is associated with all those things. And let's think about fish. Let's think about aquatic life on a realistic level, right? If you was to take fish, something that needs to breathe and live under the water, out of water, it's going to eventually die, right? It can't survive off our air. It needs water. It's going to die if you take it out of the ocean. Even if you take a fish, you put it in a fish bowl, you got a little aquarium at home, got a little thing, or you go to a real aquarium and shit, that fish, that aquatic life, it will die on its own if somebody else isn't taking care of it, right? But if you was to leave that fucking fish alone in its natural fucking habitat, its natural fucking environment, it can go feed itself. It don't need nobody to feed for it. Feed it. It don't need to rely on somebody. Now think about Venus. Venus represents women, love, relationships, and all that good stuff. To me, putting those two things that I just said together, of Venus and the fish and all that good stuff, one of the reasons why, a Venus and Pisces and the navamsa might show that a person might not desire marriage or might not want to get married or whatever, is that why would you? They might feel like that fish. They might not want to be someone who is confined and put into a tank and has to rely on somebody to feed them and nourish them and take care of them. They want to be free. A fish want to be in the ocean. It want to swim with other people. It want to mingle with other people. Pisces is originally associated with the 12th house of loss. Loss and isolation. K2 is associated with fish. K2 has like the energy of Mars. That's his natural separative, detached energy. So there's an energy of disassociation and separativeness and out of body or whatever, a detachment from this world type of sense associated with Pisces due to his connection with the 12th house and due to his connection with K2. So to me, Venus being in Pisces in a sense shows that person wants to be liberated from this karakas and significations of Venus, which is typically, normally, love and relationships. Pisces being the final sign shows me that, in a sense, that planet being in Pisces, it has experienced all of the things in relation to the signs and the houses that came prior to it. It has fulfilled and walked and did everything. Pisces is the feet. So to me, Venus and Pisces shows that it's already walked and experienced all of the things of that house and planet. Or think about feet. The thing with Pisces being the feet can turn ugly real quick, right? Because you always are walking on your feet. Your feet, they get calluses because you're always walking on them. They're always rubbing up against each other. They can get bruised. They get sore. So from that perspective of, Pisces being associated with the feet and Venus being love, Venus and Pisces in the navamsa might show a person might feel as though that them having to deal with marriage relationship would be too painful. It would be too much of a burden. Their feet can't take it. They don't want to do it no more. So that's one perspective. One perspective is that one, The fish doesn't want to be taken out of the ocean. It doesn't want to have to die. It doesn't want to be confined and have to rely on somebody to feed it and take care of it for everything. 2, Pisces is the feet. Feet, you always stand on your feet. So your feet, they get fucked up and can turn ugly real quick if you don't take care of them. They can be high maintenance if you care about how your feet look. Pisces, Venus, Pisces might view relationship as too high maintenance, too stressful, too burdensome, and it might not want to deal with it. It might want to escape. It might want to find moksha. Because Pisces is the highest of the moksha, the highest zodiac sign in regards to moksha. Venus is Dharma. Venus rules all of the middle of the Dharma fire signs. It rules all of the Venus ruled nakshatras fall in the middle of the Dharma fire signs. Venus is Shukracharya, the one-eyed guru of the Asuras. So Venus is very spiritual in a sense. So Pisces and Venus might bring out more so of the spiritual side of Venus, especially if it's in the navamsa, or maybe in the even in the D60 chart. But for this video, just the navamsa, it might show a person might not want to get married. You might be able to apply the same logic even maybe to the 7th lord. But now I'm just rambling. I'm just theorizing. I'm just giving you different things to think about and theorize when you look at a person's chart now. But yeah, that's all I had to say. There's loads of little tricks that you can look at when it comes to assessing a person's navamsa chart. So many tricks, so many that I don't know, so many that I haven't really took time to really sit and think and process. You have to just find out for yourself. But this video should be a great video if you had the patience to sit through this shit and took notes or repeat it. It's a great video for you to learn. And one good thing that I'm going to start to think about, and I'll end the video with this, that y'all can think about too, is like I told y'all, the Sun nakshatras, the Jupiter nakshatras, and the Mars nakshatras are all nakshatras that fall in between 2 zodiac signs. And it makes me think, what do all 3 of those planets have in common? It makes me want to think about it and draw a connection. Of course, all of the Jupiter ruled nakshatras, they're like real malefic, or they're real, I don't know, they're real tumultuous. And of course, all the Jupiter ruled nakshatras, they also all got a theme of twins and duality. That's Jupiter's easy. I didn't think heavy about Mars and Sun. So that'd be something good for y'all to work on, and me to work on eventually, when or if I decide to make a video. But I hope this video on navamsa was something that you have never seen and heard before. I hope that after looking at this video, you yourself are able to pull out your phone and look at your navamsa chart and be like, I can make connections now. I'm able to see, I'm able to understand. I hope that it gives you that little spark. And with that being said, I'll see you whenever I decide to make my next video. Thank you for watching me and subscribe to me. I really appreciate it. See you.